Regularly scheduled programs will not be seen tonight so that we may bring you the NFL football game live and in color.
We got to use the carriage versus that blitz. Apple, chocolate, Japan, Richmond, New York, Richmond, Florida, Sally, Buffalo, check, hey, Short Ox, Luda, Raiders. How about? I might audible. If I audible, I'll use brown, right? Brown, right, orange, purple, white, red, 96, 18, 30. Well, I'm the best corner in the game. When you try me with a third receiver like Crabtree, that's the result you're going to get. Don't you ever talk about me.
Who was talking about you?
Crabtree, don't you open your mouth about the best. Or I'm going to shut it for you real quick. L.O.B.
Joe, back over to you.
From the men who brought you basically a sports show, if your football fix wasn't met on Thursday night, it's time for an additional slice. This is basically a football show right now. Let's go!
Get it in here. I got one thing to say. This is when the big dogs come out. Damn right. Okay? Right. You can't roll with the big dogs. Stay on the board. Hey, baby. We're going to be here all day, baby. I like this kind of party.
His method is not Grand Prix, but Demolition Derby.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, sports fans, it's basically a football show. I'm Zach. Along with me is Greg, and along for the playoffs, as always, Mike. It's championship week, fellas. We had one game that, was good enough, and then we had one really great game, just setting up for what I think is probably going to be one of the best Super Bowls in a little while.
The second half of the NFC Championship game was one of the best conference championship game halves I've ever seen. But I don't know about the whole game being that great, but the second half more than made up for any lack of anything in the first half. I will say that.
Let's start there, because that's definitely the more interesting of the two games at the end of it. 49ers, Seahawks. We knew all these games have been physical battles all season. You knew it was going to be that way. Right off the hop of the game, Seattle gets the ball and they fumble it on the first possession. And, that's the sort of thing that happened to the 49ers up in Seattle. So you thought maybe the tide was turning. They go up 3-0. They end up going up 10-0. But Seattle hangs in there. Keep finding very physical on both sides of the ball. Gets a field goal there before half. And Marshawn Lynch comes out at the start of the third quarter. Nice 40-yard run to go beast mode and get some Skittles thrown his direction.
I don't get the Skittles.
Yeah, he likes Skittles.
Apparently, whenever he scores a touchdown, he eats Skittles on the sideline, and so it's not like a thing that the fans started. It's something he's just been eating Skittles his whole career, I guess. Whatever. And let's see, where did we go from there? Then San Francisco came back, 26-yard pass to Anquan Bolden from Kaepernick.
A beautiful pass, by the way.
Great play.
Yeah, I want to talk about that in a minute, because while these were beautiful passes that Kaepernick was making, he was really testing it, and I think that's what came up and bit him back in the end there. Anyway, San Francisco goes ahead 17-10. Seattle keeps clawing back. They get a field goal. They go up 20-17 early in the fourth quarter with a 35-yard pass from Russell Wilson. And then it got a little kind of weird there for a minute. Seattle's driving. They get down. They intercept Kaepernick. They're down on the 2-yard line. They go for it on third down, and it looks like they were stopped. It also looks like San Francisco recovered a fumble. It also looked like they lost their second-best linebacker to a just gruesome knee injury. And, there was a lot of confusion, people yelling at each other, trying to sort out what was going on at the bottom of the pile. And the referees award the ball to Seattle in what was a weird play that was unchallengeable.
But it was clearly San Francisco's ball, though.
Right, it was clearly San Francisco's ball, but the way the rule is interpreted, referees, via replay, they cannot determine possession in the field of play, only in the end zones or if it goes out of bounds.
That sounds remarkably stupid.
Right.
Only because it is.
Right. Ultimately, it doesn't matter because they get stopped on fourth down, and so San Francisco gets the ball on the 1, and they manage to get out of the shadow of their own goal line, but not far enough. Seattle eventually gets another field goal, tacks it on. 23-17 lead. Just enough time for Kaepernick to try and get a drive down to tie this game or take the lead with the extra point. And in what was, I don't think it was the best designed play, but Kaepernick tests his abilities one more time, goes to his best receiver, Crabtree, in the end zone. It is tipped by Richard Sherman, who will let you know that he tipped it. And it gets intercepted, and Seattle is your NFC champions in a wild game, especially there in the second half, like Greg mentioned. Just a crazy, crazy second half. Just a physical, kind of angry football game. It was really fun to see.
Well, one thing I want to point out is that after the fumble that wasn't for San Francisco,
sure.
Didn't Lynch fumble on the next play and they got the ball back? So basically justice prevailed. But on that play, for just a second, I understand kind of when you can't really, like, if a ball gets loose and there's a big pile of people, obviously you can't review that because there's no way to tell. When everybody's at the bottom of the pile, you don't know who's going to come out with it. But on a play that's so obvious like that, especially in the playoffs, they have to find a way to make that a reviewable play.
It's obvious to you and me, but the referee didn't see it. And
that's the worst part.
What it came down to. It was just the referee did not see that Navarro Bowman ultimately got the football.
Well, that's the thing, too. The entire officiating crew blew that play.
Yep.
It wasn't. That isn't even one that you really needed. If you were paying attention, you really even needed replay to solve for you. But it was, fortunately, everything worked out because I would have hated to have seen San Francisco end up losing because of that play. It worked out, justice prevailed, and everything went the way it went. But wow.
Yeah, there were some people that were kind of complaining about the referees in this game the whole way through. I thought it was – people were complaining about calls being missed. I thought it was a little refreshing to see things get let go a little bit, that they weren't calling every defensive holding or ticky-tack stuff because, these are the way these two teams play. They play physical on defense, and they try to run the football, and that's – you can kind of get yourself caught being a little aggressive in those situations and let both the teams get aggressive. I never thought it got extremely out of hand in that sense, but it was just an entertaining game to watch. It's being replayed on NFL Network right now, and I'm watching it. It's just, on every play, everyone's getting into it. It's not like the Carolina-San Francisco game where everyone was getting into it and yelling at each other and trying to just be general jackasses about it. But it was just a good kind of old-school football game.
I absolutely agree. That's what I liked about it. They let them play. And I would love to see more of that in the NFL. But I can't recall a game where the hitting was as hard on both sides in a long time. If it was possible, they seemed to have amped it up from what they were doing to each other in the regular season. In this game, it was like at another level with just the way they were the hits were so hard. And I'm surprised there weren't more injuries, is what I took away from it. But it was a great, great NFC championship.
Now, for San Francisco, Colin Kaepernick probably is the best game I've seen him play in a while, as far as being able to run the football, 130 yards on 11 carries. He threw the football effectively, but
he tested his abilities, like you said,
he tested his abilities. If you look at all those passes, even the ones that he was making, he was forcing it. They were throwing it right over Seattle defenders, and the two interceptions he had were underthrows. He was trying to make the same play that he made all in the first half, including that touchdown to Bolden where he threw it over a defender and trying to fixed it in there a little bit. But Kaepernick, he was the difference for San Francisco in keeping them in the game, and he was the difference for San Francisco in ending the game essentially.
Yeah, that pass to Baldwin was it was beautiful, but it was definitely the kind where you kind of you sighed afterwards and you're like, "Whoa, that was close." It was definitely not the type of pass you want to make a habit of making, but he just kept going back to that well.
Well, that's the thing, that when you see the play happen, you think, "Wow, great play." Because it really was. He got loose. He threw the ball basically while it was practically jumping in the air while he threw it, and it was a really nice play to watch. I don't know that it was the smartest play. He made it. They got the touchdown and everything, but you can't make your living like that. I think, and it's like like Bill Simmons said about Kaepernick. If you're a gambler, you're terrified to bet with him. You're terrified to bet against him. And man, he showed us exactly why yesterday in that game. Because like Zach just pointed out, He kept him in it with his legs, took him right out of it with his arm. Simple as that.
But, Richard Sherman with the game-saving play at the end, he had some words on that.
Yeah, he makes the play, and as Crabtree's walking off the field, he goes over to shake Crabtree's hand. Gives him a little pat on the butt and, puts his hand out there, which gets met by a nice stiff arm from Crabtree. And, maybe 30 seconds after that happened, poor Aaron Andrews goes over and grabs Richard Sherman. Hey, how do you feel about this win and making the big play there at the end? And Richard Sherman does his best WWE promo, one of the best I've seen in a while.
He looks directly into the camera.
Forcefully, saying, why are you putting a sorry-ass receiver like Crabtree on me? He didn't even say ass. He was actually very kind of composed about yelling at the camera. Put a sorry receiver like Crabtree. I'm the best in the game. You want to test me like that? Test me. I'm going to show you I'm the best in the game every single time. It was actually kind of refreshing to see.
It was.
Instead of going over to Peyton Manning all the teammates came out here and we did a good job and
the Patriots played one hell of a game and
yeah. No, it was I'm the best in the game. They sucked. They said that I sucked. Guess who showed you I'm the best in the game? Don't test me. Some people take it as a little. Maybe if you're a 49er fan, you don't exactly like it, and it's kind of been Richard Sherman's persona for his whole career. He's also the guy that, if you remember, he went on First Take and mouthed off to Skip Bayless, telling him, asking him about his athletic career, which fantastic. So I think that probably endeared me to Richard Sherman. So I'm probably a little bit more amped to side with him and enjoy what he's saying because I just think it's fun. Because I don't think he's being malicious. He's not being like a TO type, like, look at me. He's just saying that he's better, I guess. I don't know.
When I saw it happen live, my first thought was, wow, what a classless jerk. But that was before. I didn't really know much about Richard Sherman. All I'd known before that was when he took Skip Bayless to task on First Take, and it was awesome. But then I read a piece that someone had written about him. I don't remember where it was at. And I watched a video that NFL Films had done about him. And it made more sense to me after that. And I still don't know how wise it is to be that blatantly WWE style against your opponents, because it will come back to bite you one of these days. But at the end of the day, it was harmless. I think people overreacted to it in the heat of the moment. I think
part of it, too, is this wasn't just the first time. That I guess from what Sherman was saying after the game, when he was finally a little bit more composed, because 30 seconds after the game, that's going to happen from a guy like Richard Sherman. But then they got into the locker room, people were asking him things, and he was saying kind of the same things, but he was a little bit more composed about it and seemed a little bit more rational about what he was trying to say.
Well, you guys, he apologized for it today. Do you guys think he should have done that?
No, I don't.
Apologize? No.
I don't think he did anything wrong, really. I mean, I'm kind of with Zach on that. It was refreshing to see. I don't want every pro athlete to, go around yelling about how great they are, but one or two remarks like that, it's a refreshing break from the norm. I'm all for, act classy, act respectful, but it gets taken to such extremes and such cliches at some points that just someone coming out and saying, yeah, I won the game, I'm the best, that's just refreshing to see. And I didn't have a problem with it. I don't think he needed to apologize. He didn't say I don't think he said anything that warranted an apology.
I think the other thing why I'm a little bit more inclined to be okay with it is, like I was saying, from what I understand, Crabtree was going at him all game too. And was going at him in the game before, and and last season. So it's not like it's a one-time thing. And it wasn't Richard Sherman trying to make the game all about himself. Like, I won this game for the team. I did this. It's I shut down Crabtree. They wanted to test me against Crabtree on the final play, and I knocked him down on the one play. I don't think he was going out there saying that the Seahawks are all about me. It's not like a. It's similar to a Deion Sanders, but not in as more of a me first sort of way that like Deion was. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think T.O. is probably a better comparison. T.O. he was definitely a guy that was all about him first.
Well, I was just trying to use a cornerback to cornerback comparison, but yeah.
But I'm with you guys. I mean the pablum that we get fed with the rehearsed bull nonsense answers that we get from and I'm not knocking Peyton Manning. The guy's a corporate spokesman. He has to conduct himself a certain way.
Sure.
But you do get a little tired of the cliches that just pour one right after another, to the point where after-game interviews are really just a colossal waste of time. So from that aspect of it, I think it was great that he did that. But I'm also kind of like, hey, there was no need to be screaming and yelling about it like that.
Yeah. I think had he said the same thing but in a different tone.
Right.
Like if he wasn't just screaming at the camera.
It's a generational thing, too. I guarantee you that people my age are way more upset about it than people your guys' age are.
Right. I was watching the game with my grandfather, and, he was like, well, what is this guy doing? Who does he think he is?
Johnny Unitas wouldn't have done that.
Yeah. Well, he would have said Y.A. Tittle, but yeah.
I don't know. I'm a pro wrestling fan, so that really was awesome to me. I'm like, oh my god, he's so ready for his match against Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania.
Well, I mean, it's just funny because you look at then, and then not even 5 minutes later when they ask him on like the trophy stand when they're giving him the NFC Championship trophy, which I like the old trophies better. NFL, these little plastic Little League trophies that you're giving out.
Yeah. I mean, the old trophies they were kind of old looking, but that was kind of what made them cool.
Yeah.
Well, that with the Richard Sherman thing, that Fox, they bailed on that interview early after he started that. There could have been more, but they decided to get out of it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But see, this is the thing though. I think they might have been worried he was going to start swearing or something, but this is what I learned about him today. He's a Stanford graduate. I knew he'd gone to Stanford and graduated. What I wasn't aware of, he's a communications major. He knows how to do this.
He knows wasn't he in like the top 2% of his high school class?
School class too, yeah. But he knows what he's doing when he gets in front of a camera. So I think if Fox had known that, they would have let the interview go. He wasn't going to swear. He knew exactly. He looked right at the camera. He did it like a pro. So I don't know. It's like I said, it's a generational thing. I also think too, if it wasn't a black guy doing it, people don't react as strongly to it. I mean, that's unfortunate, but that's the truth. But back to the game itself for a second.
Sure.
Where are we at on Colin Kaepernick after this?
I'm kind of where I was before the game.
Yeah.
He's when he's brilliant, he's brilliant. When he's not, he costs his team games. And I'm going to reiterate it. I still don't see where the significant improvement came from by going with Colin Kaepernick over Alex Smith. The 49ers have yet to accomplish anything with Kaepernick that I don't think they could have accomplished, with Alex Smith. Right. A couple of botched special teams plays, which Smith had no part in 2 years ago in the NFC title game, and the 49ers go to the Super Bowl with him at quarterback. So, again, I'm not seeing this massive improvement with Colin Kaepernick. I don't see how he was clearly the superior choice. He is going to be the 49ers quarterback probably for the foreseeable future, and he has the potential, he has the skill to, take them to a Super Bowl and potentially win a Super Bowl. I don't see him really, though, as anything extraordinary at this point.
I think the comparison to be made here, and not saying that they're on the same level, just kind of similar styles of play, is to Brett Favre. Where it's that kind of gunslinger mentality sort of thing.
Right.
Where, yeah, sure, he can break open the game, and obviously he can do something that Favre couldn't, where he could run for 130 yards in a game, but at the same time, he's going to make mistakes like he did with the underthrown passes that went right to the Seattle receivers, or the Seattle defenders. So I think the difference between him and Alex Smith is he can break those huge plays. And yeah, Alex Smith did it in the one playoff game, and he did it for the Chiefs in the playoff game against the Colts, at least the first half this year. But it's not something that he does consistently, whereas Kaepernick can do this sort of thing on any given day. But it's the consistency. he's got to develop some sort of consistency to his game and eliminate those mistakes. If he doesn't throw either of those 2 interceptions, the 49ers win this game.
Yeah.
And it may have been a bigger margin than just the 6 points that ended up being.
Yeah.
Well,
for Seattle.
I will say this in Kaepernick's defense: Alex Smith at quarterback, all things being equal in that game yesterday, San Francisco's never in it.
Right.
Because Kaepernick's legs were what kept them in that football game. But by the same token, you could also argue that Smith would have been a better passer, so it might have equaled itself out. But I just think with the Seahawks playing defense the way they play it, I would rather take my chances as a 49ers fan with Kaepernick in that particular game, maybe not all the time, but in that particular game, than I would have with Smith.
Right.
But
Smith can run, but only as a necessity and not to the point where Kaepernick can. I think if Smith's back there, Seattle's going to be able to contain him in the pocket a little bit more, and if he's just standing back there in the pocket all day, that Seattle front seven was just going to rip him up, and then the secondary was just going to be in position to capitalize like they did still against Kaepernick. So it's one of those things where he's that gunslinger. You gotta accept that he's going to make these mistakes, and either he fixes them or it's just this is the way he plays, and hopefully you get a time in his career like Favre did where he doesn't make those mistakes. And really, when you think about Favre, he only won one Super Bowl,
right?
Yep.
Two?
He won one, went to 2.
Went to 2,
right.
won 1, yeah.
And maybe that's the ceiling for Kaepernick, because the thing that really drives San Francisco is their defense and the run game. And Frank Gore wasn't up to the same sort of standards, only 14 yards on 11 carries. Kaepernick was obviously the one doing the things in the run game. So, maybe San Francisco, if they can develop a little bit more, because Frank Gore's, getting pretty old.
Yeah, he's moving.
Especially for a running back.
His expiration date's getting pretty close. Yeah,
right. And so, unless you want to make Kaepernick your full-time runner, then that's going to shorten his career, kind of like,
Michael Vick,
or you hope that he doesn't have the same sort of things that RG3's had happen to him early in his career so far. So it's a double-edged sword that I think the 49ers are just going to have to be prepared to deal with. He's either going to lead you to a Super Bowl and everything's going to be great, or he'll get you on the precipice and turn in a game like this.
Well, and I got to give Russell Wilson some credit, too. I don't know that he played
Sure.
the greatest game yesterday, but I'll give the kid credit. He stays cool. I mean, at no point did he seem rattled, and the 4th down touchdown pass was just a thing of beauty.
Oh, yeah.
And so he played, of the two right now, I mean, Wilson just has a better head about him. And I think that's going to – if there's anything he could do to improve his game, I would say study the game more. Try to get more in the Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees mode, where you're not so much relying on your natural ability, and try to get more cerebral about the game. Because I think if he could put that aspect of his game together with his physical attributes, he could really be something.
And that was something they broke down early in the game when they looked back at they were showing highlights of the first couple of games against Seattle. And what it looked like, what the adjustment was, instead of him being quicker reading through all of his progressions passing, it looked like what they told him to do was, if your first or second pass isn't there, run.
Yeah.
And that can work until somebody contains you in the pocket, and then you're going to have to try to make all your reads. And I don't know if he can do that at this point in his career.
I heard someone, a Kaepernick fan, comment that one of his biggest strengths when he was at was it at University was it Reno, Nevada?
Nevada.
Okay. University of Nevada was that he had the ability to kind of like carry a team on his back. He could he could almost will a team to victory. And I think that's what he's trying to do here. The thing that I don't think he has yet to figure out is that the whole heart of a champion, I can just will us to victory mentality doesn't work in the NFL.
Well, I
like
think
it
it's
does
also
in NCAA.
It's also easier for him to do that in the WAC versus doing it in the NFL. And I mean, the other thing too is in the NFL you have a guy like Marshawn Lynch or Russell Wilson on the other side, or even Richard Sherman, that they can say, yeah, I'm going to put the team on my back too. So it's it's a different level of competition. Everything's faster, and he's got to be a little bit more patient, I think.
Yeah.
And that's just it's really. I mean, he's only been a starter and quarterback in the NFL for a year and a half, basically.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a little too early to be this harsh on him, but the NFL is a very reactionary league. You got to do things quickly. But he's going to be more patient and like you said, Greg, be a little bit more cerebral. Where I think Russell Wilson is a little bit more like that already early in his career, where he'll sit there. If he needs to sit back there and pass, he'll sit back there and pass. And he was super clutch on those throws. I think that was the difference. Wilson a little bit more clutch in this game than Kaepernick. The one thing I'll say about Russell Wilson, and especially as he's going against Broncos defense that are pretty good at rushing the passer, the one thing I don't like that he does is when he's trying to run out the play to find more passing options, he just keeps running backwards. Like he just turns around, runs. Oh, there's a guy there, and just keeps running backwards while like zigzagging back and forth. Sometimes you just got to take the sack and just take the ball and say, you know what, this is done. Like it's something that Peyton Manning does very well, where it's this play's not here. And Peyton obviously can't run the same way that even Russell Wilson can, but sometimes you just got to take a bad play instead of trying to force it a little bit. But
right. Well, I was going to, the one thing I would say too is that you don't want to take and analyzing Kaepernick, you don't want to take anything away from the Seattle defense, because that's a tough defense to do anything against. I don't care who you are, but Kaepernick has also shown tendencies to do the same kind of game we saw yesterday throughout the season. So while a lot of it, the Seattle defense is very, very tough, as we saw yesterday. But you could make the argument, well, it was the Seattle defense and it's not Kaepernick's fault. But he's also done this during the season too. But I think the kid's very talented. He's certainly got the gifts. But I think if you put Wilson's mental makeup in Kaepernick's body, you'd have something like you've never seen before. But anyway, just definitely the two best teams in the NFC going at it yesterday, I think.
Yeah, despite the seedings, they were the two best teams in the NFC, and ultimately the best team that was the best team in the NFC all season long. The number one scoring defense, number one total defense, best team in the NFC from start to finish, I think. Only fitting that they end up winning the NFC, and they get to go against the number one team in the AFC, the number one scoring offense, the number one total offense, the number one team in the AFC from start to finish, the Denver Broncos.
The greatest offense in the history of football.
Wow.
The greatest offense in the history of football.
According to Phil Simms.
The 89 49ers are playing again?
No. Take it up with Phil Simms.
Nope. But just like the best two teams in the NFC went at it, the best two teams in the AFC went at it, although not to the same sort of tune that we were expecting. Denver was getting 5 points before the game started, and when it comes to the betting lines, and I thought it was that you'd be a fool to take the Broncos in the points. There was no way that the Broncos weren't, like the Patriots were going to lose by a touchdown or 5 points. Early in the game, it looked like it was just going to start pulling away from them, and it did. Kind of slow start. Broncos eventually had to punt on their first drive. But after their first drive, the Broncos then scored on their next 6 possessions. All of their final 6 possessions of the game, only 7 possessions. And slowly but methodically, the Broncos put up the points and end up beating the Patriots in a 26-16 fashion. Just kind of a technical breakdown from Peyton Manning. Probably one of the best games I've seen him play in the playoffs in a long time. And on the other side of the ball, despite the matchup being played up all week, Brady versus Manning, Manning versus Brady, I don't think Tom Brady and the Patriots looked very good. I think they'd been trying to string it along all season with the guys that they had, and I think they came up against just flat out the better team and ran out of gas there.
Well, you know what I think happened with, especially in the AFC game, we got so used to the craziness of the regular season that I don't know that anyone was ready or willing to say, okay, the two best teams are just this much better than everybody else, because it had just been such a nutty season that you thought everything could happen. But when I watched the Broncos-Patriots game, I don't believe it was ever as close as the score indicates. The Broncos dominated that game from start to finish. No. And even the touchdown drive towards the end, the first one, or the one that they missed a 2-point conversion on, I believe that was more of just the Broncos were thinking, if you want to take 7 minutes and score a touchdown, we're going to let you do that, because we're just interested in killing the clock right now. So I don't know that Brady all of a sudden found it and had this heroic comeback ready to go that was just a 2-point conversion short from maybe happening. I don't think that was the case at all. I think the Broncos just thought, we will let you drive. If you want to get all the way down the field, 6, 7, 8 yards at a time, knock yourselves out. You're just eating, you're burning clock, and we're not worried about it. We'll get the ball back, and that'll be that.
It was very similar to the San Diego game in that sense, where, the Chargers got closer at the end and had the position to almost get themselves in a tie game. But, it never felt like the Broncos were going to lose this one.
The Broncos just played a more complete game. I was a bit disappointed because I figured, not so much in Tom Brady. I was disappointed almost in Bill Belichick. I still think, I think you'd be a fool to say that John Fox is a better coach than Bill Belichick. And that's not even a knock against John Fox. Bill Belichick just is that good as a coach. And I was expecting more out of him. Maybe everything he had planned out just sort of fell flat, and once he exhausted all of his options, he didn't know what to do. But I was expecting more from the Patriots on the coaching front that just never really materialized.
Yeah, the Patriots. I mean, last week or the week before, when they ran straight down the throats of the Colts, they didn't really stick to the run game this week. And it was something that Phil Simms tried to point out at the beginning of the game, where Bill Belichick doesn't stick to the same game plan every week. Running the ball is the best game plan against the Colts, but not the best game plan against the Broncos. The thing that surprised me most about this game is I just don't think Tom Brady played all that well.
No, he didn't.
He was overthrowing receivers.
Yeah.
And say what you want about the quality of his receivers, he's still got to put the ball in a position for them to make a play. And he still got some chunks of yards there late in the game when the Broncos decided to play prevent defense.
That's all it was, yeah.
Which, as you know, prevent defense prevents absolutely nothing. I never understand why teams do that. Well, why change what you're doing all game just to avoid
because
the play?
Why?
I really believe that they did that because they knew that they were okay with them. They were up. What were they up at the time? 26 to.
They were up 26-10.
They're okay. Like I said, I really believe that the philosophy at that point was if you want to take 7, 6, 7, 8 minutes and drive down to get a touchdown, we're okay with that. They had that much confidence in Manning in the offense that they were going to get the ball back, and they weren't worried about it. I don't think it was just that they just all of a sudden switched up defensive schemes because they're stupid. I really think that was what the objective was, and it seemed to work.
Maybe, but maybe this is just me.
It was risky.
Maybe this is just me as a shell-shocked Chargers fan, but I would never in a million years just, say to Tom Brady, okay, here's a free touchdown, because he hadn't been playing the best game of his career up till that point. But with Brady, you just don't know. He could have turned it on at any moment.
Sure.
He didn't necessarily, but you don't want to take that chance. And if I'm playing a Tom Brady-led team, I'm not giving up a single touchdown that I don't have to.
Well, here's something.
That's my thing with Tom Brady. He probably scares me more than any other quarterback late in the game. When he gets, Tom Brady's one of the best quarterbacks in the league also at doing those little dink and dunks. So, yeah, sure, you're not preventing the deep pass, but I don't think they were going to connect any deep passes as it was. So you were giving the Patriots exactly what they wanted, to just kind of move down the field 10 yards at a time, 10 yards at a time, 10 yards at a time. And I was afraid that once Tom Brady got some momentum going, that it was just going to be one of those things. And they tried the onside kick right to Eric Decker, who last week dropped an onside kick in the same sort of fashion, but hold on to it this time. And it's still, maybe the Broncos still hold on, and it's not a big deal, because I don't think the Broncos were ever going to lose it in the first place. I still think the Patriots can stop what Peyton was trying to do. And I think that was evidence too. I think Peyton changed his game up a little bit too in this game. Rather than trying to be as fast as possible as they had all year, in the second and third quarters, they put together some very long, controlling 7-8 minute drives. And that killed time off the clock, and the defense was doing its job, and it was 20-3 before they knew it. That's
what I'm talking about. I'm not saying that it was the smartest game plan for the Broncos to say, okay, we're going to let you burn some clock, but here's what you're in the heat of the battle. This is the data as it's been presented to you. They are not doing anything on offense, okay? We've got, a 16-point lead at this point. There's X amount of time left in the game. If we back off, he's going to complete these 10-yard passes, but he's going to burn up a lot of clock. I think that it was just simply a matter of looking at it and going, okay, this is an option we're going to try for this drive. An 8-minute drive, yeah, you're going to get a touchdown out of it, but it's not nearly as bad as getting hit for a 65-yard touchdown that takes 35 seconds. I think that was why the Broncos backed off a little bit on those last couple of drives. They were content with letting Brady dink and dunk his way all the way down because it just kept eating clock. And they weren't doing anything. He'd been overthrowing receivers all day. They knew that the long passing game wasn't there, so they said, okay, this is what we're going to do. I could be wrong. And I agree, it's a very risky strategy, but I just don't think that the Broncos coaching staff, to be in the position they are this season, was so stupid that they went, well, we've got a lead, now we're going to go to the prevent and just let them walk down the field on us. I do believe there was some method to the madness. That's all I'm saying.
No, I understand. But I still think at the end of it, it just wasn't the best, probably one of the worst playoff games I've seen Tom Brady play. He still racked up, 277 yards or so?
Yeah, a lot of that was garbage time, though.
Yeah, garbage time yards, only one touchdown. He got sacked twice, and not just sacked twice, but sacked on a fourth down and sacked in another big situation. And they lost 21 yards on those two sacks.
But here's the thing that's disconcerting. A lot of that yardage was in garbage time, but the same thing happened with Phillip Rivers the week before. The majority of Phillip Rivers' passing yardage came in quote-unquote garbage time when you could make the case that it didn't matter. And that says to some very interesting things to me about this Broncos defense. They can't get, especially going up against Seattle, they can't get into the habit of just taking their foot off the pedal at the end of the game. Obviously, that missed two-point conversion that pretty much put the kibosh on the comeback, but the Patriots still got into a position where a comeback was entirely possible.
I'm not saying it was the smartest strategy. I guess I'm just hoping that the Broncos' defensive coaching staff isn't that dumb. And I just don't know how you get to, what were they, 13-3 on the year?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just don't know how you get there if you're that stupid. And so I guess I'm more speculating that there was some rhyme and reason to it.
I guess you get there.
What the explanations is, from what I understand, and at least in the Charger game, Chris Harris, one of their defensive backs, got hurt, and that opened up the passing game a little bit because the Broncos were already pretty thin when it came to cornerbacks in terms of injuries and stuff. And that's when they started turning it on. But from what I can tell in the same situations, were the Broncos playing some prevent defense against the Chargers just like they were against the Patriots this week?
They were. They were really. I mean, Phillip Rivers was able to spread the ball around at the end of that game, but a lot of that was the Broncos letting him. They really gave him the space that he needed. And Greg, you asked, how could you be 13-3 and be that stupid? I think I think the answer is, when you have Peyton Manning playing some of the best football of his career as your quarterback, you can afford to be that stupid as a defensive coordinator, because you can afford to give up a touchdown here or there because you know that your offense is capable of getting it back. That's
what I'm saying, though. That was my argument, or at least trying to figure out what the reasoning was, because believe me, as a Cleveland Browns fan, you're never going to hear me endorse a prevent defense. I watched the Super Bowl appearance get taken away in 1986 because of the stupid prevent defense. I'm with you guys. If you're playing a whatever defense is you're playing and it's working the whole game, unless you're up by 35 and then you just want to kill time, there's no reason to switch from what you were doing. I just think that they had that much faith. I'm hoping. I shouldn't say I think, because I'm not sure. On the surface, it looks like a really dumb thing to do, and I agree. I do want to say this. It's time to start giving the Broncos some credit. I heard yesterday, well, it's because the Patriots had so many injuries and blah, 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 this and that. Everybody gets injuries throughout the NFL season. One of the main factors in being a successful team is how healthy you stay throughout the season. So I'm sorry if the Patriots weren't as healthy as everybody wanted them to be, but that's a team that showed up. The Broncos were 13-3. They were the number one seed in the AFC. This Broncos team's a good football team. And Peyton Manning, I was with you, Mike, with the whole I'll take Brady over everybody else. But then I started thinking about it, and you go back since the last Super Bowl win, what's he really done?
Well, I brought those stats up right now, and I wanted to throw these out there because I wanted to ask this question, too, about Tom Brady and the Patriots. In Tom Brady's first 10 career playoff games, he went 10-0, won 3 Super Bowls, and never threw more than 1 interception in a game. Since that third Super Bowl ring, Tom Brady is 8-8, 0-2 in the playoffs, or 0-2 in the Super Bowl, and has thrown 2 or more interceptions 6 times. He also has a 2-4 career record against a Manning, whether it's Peyton or Eli at quarterback now. Because with the win, they evened up the record at 2-2 versus Peyton, and of course he's 0-2 versus Eli in both those Super Bowls that he lost. So, and it's interesting to look at. You know, I think the thing that they pointed out in this article that I'm reading here too is those Patriots teams were different than these Patriots teams. Tom Brady has to do a lot more with these Patriots teams than he had to in those early years.
Right.
The defense is not the same. In the last 16 playoff games, the defense has allowed 23 points a game and only got 1 sack every 18 downs or so. Whereas in the past, in those first 10 playoff games when they went 10-0 and won the Super Bowls, the defense only allowed around 16 points and was getting a sack every 13 pass attempts.
Greg, you asked what has Tom Brady done since that 3rd Super Bowl ring. I would argue that Tom Brady has taken, since that 3rd Super Bowl ring, has taken them to the last 3 AFC Championship games.
Yeah, and
he has also taken them to 2 Super Bowls since then. And granted, he did not win those 2 Super Bowls, and he has not won in the last has not won in the last 2 AFC Championship games. But it's not like his talent has evaporated. He's still taking the Patriots deep into the postseason.
I'm not. Look, I'll be the last guy to criticize Tom Brady or try to diminish what he's done. I'm just saying that there are a lot of people out there that feel there's this huge gap between Brady and Manning, and I after with the playoff record and all that, I just don't see that gap anymore. And I will add this too: Danny White took the Cowboys to 3 straight NFC Championship games in the '80s. You know, Jim Kelly. Bernie Kosar took the Browns to the AFC Championship game 3 years out of 4. That's all great. That's all well and good. I'm just saying that what the point I'm trying to make, I'm not knocking Tom Brady. I still think he's one of the great quarterbacks of this era, but it's just not fair anymore to use the Super Bowl argument when comparing him to Peyton Manning. I just don't think that works anymore because of the 8-8 record since that last Super Bowl and because of all the other factors involved. In that time, since Brady's last Super Bowl, Peyton Manning has taken teams that weren't very good to 2 Super Bowls and won 1 of them. Mm-hmm. So if you want to look at it through that prism, Manning actually right now, as it stands, since the 3rd Super Bowl the Patriots won, Manning's actually had more success. That's my argument. They're 2 of the greatest of all time. There's no arguing that. But this Brady is the guy over Manning thing, it played well in 2004. I don't think it plays so well today. That's all I'm saying.
One of the reasons why Peyton came to Denver, this is kind of leading into the other question I want to ask about legacies and things of that nature. Peyton Manning, one of the reasons he came to Denver is because John Elway is the president of football operations. And what did people think of John Elway before his final couple years there in Denver when he won those 2 Super Bowls?
Oh, he choked in the playoffs, couldn't win the big one. He was Peyton Manning, basically.
And then he wins 2 Super Bowls, and all of a sudden he's one of the best 3 or 4 quarterbacks of all time, right?
Yep. Well, people always they thought of him a lot the same way they think about Manning today. One of the greats of all time, but doesn't have the championship resume to put him in the truly elite status, or whatever you want to call it. In the Joe Montana, Terry Bradshaw pantheon of whatever it is we used to rate these things. That was the knock on.
Well, in answer to this question and in answer to your upcoming question, Zach, about legacy, I think we're 1 game too early to be asking that, because all of this talk about we can start talking about exercising Peyton Manning's demons. All of that's going to be for naught if he has a stinker of a game against Seattle. If he goes with wins against the Chargers and wins against the Patriots, people are saying, "Oh, where's all the talk about how he can't win in the playoffs now?" People forget that he took them to a Super Bowl relatively recently against New Orleans, and then that did not go so well.
Back up a second. Why can't we use the same argument against Brady? It doesn't make any sense. If he has a bad game in the Super Bowl, well, no one's trashing Brady for losing 2 Super Bowls and 3 straight AFC Championship games. You don't hear it. But Peyton Manning, unless he wins a Super Bowl, that's it. That's just not fair to me.
No, it's true. Brady has lost 2 Super Bowls, and he's lost the last 2 straight AFC Championship games. but he also has 3 Super Bowls in 4 years to his credit. Whereas, and I know Zach is tired of me bringing this up, and I'm really not saying this to purposely try to get a reaction out of anyone here. I'm just kind of stating it as fact that as of now, Peyton Manning's only Super Bowl championship came against a Chicago Bears team that was helmed by Rex Grossman of all people. Now, whether or not
we look at the teams that Tom Brady beat in the Super Bowl.
No. I'm not saying. Well, he beat Kurt Warner. He
beat one good team. He beat that Rams team. That
I don't know.
The Panthers were not the same echelon as that team. Eagles were not in the same echelon as that team.
I'd say the Donovan McNabb Eagles team. They were. That was probably the pinnacle of their rise in the early 2000s. But
they finally won on their 4th try in an NFC Championship game. But yeah,
here's the thing.
My point being,
let Mike finish.
Okay.
My point being that whether it's fair or not, and I'm not going to make a judgment one way or another on whether or not it's fair, but whether it is fair or not, people are going to look at that one Manning Super Bowl win, and it's not going to be tainted per se, but it's going to be but it's going to be viewed as but you beat a Rex Grossman led team. And again, whether or not that's fair is entirely besides the point, because that's going to be that's always going to be in the back of people's minds, and you can justifiably argue against that, but it's still not going to get rid of that association.
We all will agree that Brady's teams that he won Super Bowls with are better than the ones he plays on now, right?
Yes.
Okay, so why are we okay with that?
Right.
Okay,
this is actually what I was going to bring up.
We're okay with that. He had good teams, so he won Super Bowls. Now that he's not winning them and he's not performing so well in the playoffs, well, it's because he's on bad teams. But if you use that argument with Peyton Manning, well, that's a non-starter. When you say, and I think anyone will agree that the Colts teams, the great Colts teams, were not that extremely talented top to bottom, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I'm not taking a thing away from Brady. I think, like I said, one of the greatest of all time. But we seem to have Manning on a much tougher learning curve than we do Tom Brady, and I just don't think that's right anymore.
Right, and what I was going to bring up...
You can't use an argument that you use for Brady against Manning. It just doesn't work that way.
What I was going to bring up is those stats that I mentioned earlier. When the Patriots' defenses were better, the Patriots won 3 Super Bowls, and they went 10-0, and Tom Brady was king of the castle.
Right.
Then the Patriots' defenses started to slip over the years once talent leaves and you can't replace it, and he hasn't won a Super Bowl since, and he has a worse record because Tom Brady's having to do it more on his own. Whereas Peyton Manning, for all those years in Indianapolis, he never had good defenses either. If you switch the two, if you put Tom Brady on those Colts teams, you put Peyton Manning on those Patriots teams, which one wins the Super Bowls?
The problem I have with that is, it's fun to speculate, but it's also counterfactual. I mean,
how so?
Because it didn't happen. When you talk about alternate history, I mean, who knows? Like, I brought this up a couple of Bass episodes ago. Okay, let's say hypothetically that Eli Manning goes to the Chargers and Phillip Rivers goes to the Giants.
Sure.
I mean, what I'm about to say might seem silly, but we could be talking about Phillip Rivers, greatest quarterback of all time, because you just don't know how things shake up like that. I mean, we like to think that everything is so interchangeable that, just plug Tom Brady into those Colts teams and Peyton Manning into those Patriots teams and see how it shakes out.
Sure.
But, it's much more complicated than that. How does Tom Brady react to Tony Dungy? How does Peyton Manning react to Bill Belichick? How does Peyton Manning fit in with the whole Robert Kraft Patriots organization? How does the relationship between Tom Brady and Jim Irsay shake out? I mean, there are many different factors. I don't think you can just say, switch them and see what happens.
It just continues to show that football is probably a lot more than almost any other sport, is a complete team game. You have to be good at all 3 phases of the game: offense, defense, special teams. And yeah, you can have a really good quarterback, but if the defense lets you down, you could say that the Broncos were probably the best team in the league last year, but if it wasn't for the defense letting them down late in the game, maybe they go on and win the Super Bowl last year. You know, if it's not for Joe Flacco chucking up one last bomb over the cornerback's head. As time goes on, you know, early on in their careers when Tom Brady was 3-0 and Peyton Manning was going 1-out in the playoffs, that yes, Tom Brady was far ahead of Peyton Manning at the time. But as time goes on, and you know, you probably won't be able to accurately assess the both of them until both their careers are done. Maybe not even until 5 or 10 years or 20 years after that. As time goes on, the numbers are getting closer and closer, and the gap between the two, I think, is shrinking, especially if Peyton goes on and wins this next Super Bowl. Trying to see if there's any of those early weird prop bets out there, but
we'll get to those next week.
Yeah, because most of those haven't been released. Most of these places only have like odds on the coin toss, which is ridiculous.
50-50?
Yeah, 50-50 odds.
It would be real interesting if it was, say, 5-1. You know, heads 5-1. That'd be cool.
And like they don't have any of the weird ones, like, you know, how many times are they going to cut to Eli Manning sitting in the Giants box? What's the over under on that?
This would be a great one. How many times do they cut to Eli Manning in the box? And of those times, how many of those show him with a derp face?
Well, every one of them. There's no other way. There's no other way to bet that. Do we think that they're going to bring up the little side angle that Eli won a Super Bowl in Peyton Stadium? So now Peyton.
They are.
I think we might hear about. We might hear about that. I don't know, 500 or 600 times between now and then.
It'll be talked about.
And of course, we've always got my favorite time of the year, Media Day at the Super Bowl, which is just, I think, the most fabulous thing ever.
Well, I was actually going to save some. I think next week we'll have some Media Day questions for everyone, maybe just the two of you, because I don't want your answer right now. I'm going to give you some time to think about it.
Okay.
But I need to know, what kind of tree would the two of you be if you were a tree?
Oh.
So you have a week to sit on it.
All right.
Tell me what kind of tree you would be. You know, just it's not going to be on the spot. You have some time to think about this one. So I'm not going to dress up like in a wedding dress and propose to you in Spanish, like some woman did to Tom Brady a few years ago. There's time.
I don't know that we're ever going to top the greatest question of all time at Media Day. How long have you been a black quarterback? To Doug Williams.
Well, I've been black since day one.
It's interesting you asked that.
I don't know. Russell Wilson's in the game. We could still get that question.
Let's see some final.
Been a black quarterback.
Yeah.
Some final news and notes. Navarro Bowman, that gruesome knee injury.
How bad was it?
Torn ACL and MCL.
Oh.
So, odds are he's not going to be playing next season.
Can I just for 1 second? You know how there's the Adrian Peterson thing got everybody talking. That put these unrealistic expectations. I don't remember where. I read a lot of stuff today, but I read somewhere where they talked about Bowman's injury and said the race is on to see if he can get back before the season starts.
I hope that enough people saw what happened to RG3 on the flip side of that coin,
right?
And see that maybe you shouldn't try to rush back as soon as possible.
People need to realize
you're ready when you're ready. Don't set a schedule to try and get ready.
People need to realize that Adrian Peterson is a freak of nature and that is not the norm.
And
right. Everyone's body's going to heal a little bit differently. You can't just rely on that.
There might have been a little help involved with that too.
Well,
deer antler hormones,
maybe.
We'll see if
speaking of that, I mean, if you want to, we don't need to go into it, but there's a lot of accusations about the Seahawks with that particular thing.
Yeah. Well, the other thing, I mean, we discussed it a little bit, but just to kind of put it out there for a quick closing discussion, Roger Goodell had a sit-down with Rich Eisen of the NFL Network, discussing what the competition committee is going to be looking for when they have a meeting. The thing that came out of the conversation that's probably the most interesting is the NFL is at least going to consider abolishing the extra point. Now, not abolishing it and saying that it's just going to be 6 points. What one of the proposals is a touchdown will automatically be worth 7 points. There will be no point after kick, but you can go for 2 still. You can go for the 8th point by either running or passing the ball, but if you don't get it, you will lose your 7th point. You'll go back down to 6.
That seems needlessly complicated.
It'll probably be a lot. I understand. It's just like if you either choose to kick or you don't. And if you choose to go for 2 or you don't. If you say no, we're not going to go for 2, then okay, you get the extra point tacked on. Even though you get an extra point for doing nothing.
I don't, I understand the logic behind it, but I think that the thing that is kind of being overlooked here, I don't know that the players' union will go along with that because it's going to cost people jobs. Because there are a lot of teams that, not a lot, but there are teams where the guy that kicks off isn't the guy that kicks field goals and extra points, Right. So I don't know. That might be an issue. I don't like it because it may, 99 times out of 100, the extra point is automatic. But
that's what they said. They did the numbers. Extra points since 2004 have a 99.1% success rate.
Wow.
And it's funny in the article, it says, unless you're up against Lawrence Taylor in the Tecmo Bowl, there's no drama attached to an extra point.
Or if you're Mike Kicker on NCAA 14 for Ohio State.
NCAA is different. There's some bad kickers in college.
But yeah,
Alabama.
Yeah, geez, do they ever. I don't like it. I understand the logic behind it, but it's kind of a harmless play, and there every once in a great while it goes bad. So I'd like to see it stick around for that.
Yeah. It's automatic, but if you miss it, it's a big deal.
It's a really big deal. Yeah.
Everything works in a straightforward, easy to understand manner. Now you score a touchdown, that's 6 points. You kick you kick the extra point, that's 1 more point, that's 7. Or if you choose to go for 2, that's 2, and if you don't get it, that you just get the original 6. If a touchdown is just going to be automatically 7 points, then it makes sense to me to make the 2-point conversion equal 9, not 8. I don't know. It just seems odd that you would get 7 points automatically, but then you would lose.
They just don't want to screw up the traditional scoring system, I guess.
Well, then keep the point after.
Well, exactly, because basically what they were doing, if you say that no, we're not going to go for 2, you get an extra point for not doing anything. You just get the point. But you get punished if you don't attempt or you don't make the 2-point attempt. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. But see, that's the thing. If they did what you want to do, Mike, and say the 2 points would get you 9, then everybody would go for 2 all the time because there's no negative consequence.
Right.
If you don't get the 2, we still got the 7.
I don't like the idea of if 6 points is a possibility, but the only way it can end up at 6 is if you miss going for 2. It's like giving a free point away, and I think that every point in every sport should be earned. Hockey, and you should have to do something to get that point. Whether it be and just missing a 2-point conversion and getting subtracted 2 points because then the 7 is just an automatic. I don't like that. I just think that every point should be earned, and that 7th point under the system they're proposing is not earned at this point. It's just a gimme. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
what I'm trying to say there?
No, that I get that, and I'm on that too. Like I said, if they just choose not to kick, then you get a point for not doing anything. You didn't do anything for that point. They just said, here, take it.
Right, exactly.
It's a freebie. Whatever. And, of course, with the teams going to the Super Bowls, those players had to then pull out of the Pro Bowl.
What a shame.
Yeah, I know. But, hey, my guy, Andrew Luck, is now a Pro Bowler for the season. Pro Bowler in his first 2 years in the league. So
I got to think, now this is just me, but if I'm a guy that's already got a Super Bowl ring and I'm on one of these 2 teams that's going, I'd be like, I'm going to give up Hawaii to go to New Jersey in February. You know what? I'll stay with the Pro Bowl. You guys have fun. I already got my ring.
I hope this bombs ratings-wise, so then we can just finally kill this stupid game that has no reason to exist.
Yeah, but
it's on NFL Network, so it's probably going to be a low bar as to what qualifies as a success rating-wise.
Well, and people, believe it or not, and we've talked about this on basically a sports show, they watch the Pro Bowl. Why?
I don't understand. I don't know.
Because
didn't the Pro Bowl last year get higher ratings than the baseball playoff games?
I don't know about that.
I think it got a higher rating than some of the baseball playoff games.
Wow. But that's the thing. We, like you guys are way into hockey, and I'm way into baseball, so I guess there are people out there like that with football.
Last year's Pro Bowl got 12.5 million viewers.
Yeah.
Why?
But here, 12.5 million people watched the Pro Bowl. Last year's World Series, not this year, but 2012's World Series, I guess. Games 1 through 3 got 12.2, 12.3, and 10.5 million people.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
So more people watched the Pro Bowl than the first 3 games of last year's World Series.
Well, we're really kind of turning into Bass territory here, but baseball has gotten very regional, where there are very few people left like me that will watch anybody anywhere. It's just, I mean, that's just the way it is. And,
these are other things that the Pro Bowl outrated. Kansas versus North Carolina in the Elite Eight, LSU Alabama football game, the Eastern Conference Finals in the NBA, a Monday Night Football game, the Orange Bowl, Olympic trials, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
That answers your question, Mike. That's why they keep playing it.
Comparatively, the Stanley Cup Final, because last year's Pro Bowl was also on NBC, the Stanley Cup Final on NBC last year, not last year, but the year before, which wasn't the Blackhawks Bruins, whatever one was before that, the Kings, right?
Kings, yeah. Who'd they play?
Kings Devils.
Oh, God.
4.9 million.
I can't fathom. I can't wrap my head around the fact. I know it's fact, but I can't wrap my head around the fact that 12.5 million people consciously decided to watch the Pro Bowl.
Sure.
I can't understand that.
It happens. So the Pro Bowl got
don't know why.
The World Series, the Olympics, Stanley Cup Final, NBA Finals.
Yeah, I don't feel it's bad for baseball now that I know that it's beating other stuff, too.
Yeah. Well, episode 22 of Basically a Sports Show. Who did you say, Greg?
Basically a football show, you mean?
Basically a football show.
The Bob Hayes edition.
Bob Hayes.
Former, I believe, and I'm not sure on this, but I think he was an Olympic sprinter that ended up playing wide receiver for the Cowboys for about 7 to 9 years, so that's who we're going with.
And he was number 22 as a wide receiver?
Yep.
Was this before they had the number? Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah, because back then you had Jim Otto playing center for the Oakland Raiders with the 00, and Kenny Burrows, wide receiver for the Oilers, and a couple other teams wore 00. It was a lot cooler back then as far as that stuff goes. And the uniforms were way better.
Yeah, I can't think of any number 22s myself.
Emmitt Smith, guys, come on.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Google's failing me on this, then.
Okay, if this does become the Emmitt Smith edition, it's got to be a Cardinals Emmitt Smith.
No, it's Bob Hayes all the way. Maybe we'll do both. Anyway, let's wrap this up.
All right. Episode 22, Basically a Football Show. Emmitt Smith, Bob Hayes edition. For Greg, for Mike, I'm Zach. This has been Basically a Football Show. Follow us on all of our platforms. iTunes, Spreaker, Podomatic, YouTube, Stitcher. Did I miss one?
Nope, that's it.
That's it. Find us at basicallyasportshow.com. Go ahead and email the show. We're taking emails now. We'll read them on the air. basicallyasportshow@gmail.com. And we'll get to those and all the other fun things around the sports world on Thursday. Again, for Greg and Mike, I'm Zach. We will see you with more football on Monday and Basically a Sports Show on Thursday. Later, everybody.
hang up and try again.